today we are going to start on a project that will take us probably a couple videos. But I am going to recreate for you and with you, and off the top of my head as best as I can remember, I'm going to recreate the journal cover that I did. So the last journal flip through that I would have done was one that had a single signature journal in the middle, and then it had an elastic band for a traveler's notebook in the front, and then the whole thing was kind of a folio that folded over both of the journals. So we're going to recreate that. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how I did that. Now, just so you know, I made that one up as I went, as I do most of the time with most things that I do. So I'm going to recreate it the best that I can. And I rewatched my video and I went, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. So, but we're gonna, we're just gonna make this up as we go. The things, so I pulled out the things that we would need. And so we're gonna need some sort of an adhesive, and you could use fabric glue because we are going to be gluing fabric to our cover. I'm going to use this Lineco neutral pH adhesive. This is an archival quality PVA glue, and this one I just get from Amazon, and I like it because it stays flexible and it dries clear. So this brand I like, and I've used this. I think this is my third bottle. They last a long time, but I always use this in bookbinding. So we're going to use this as we glue this down. Like I said, you could choose to use a fabric glue like Fabri-Tac or something like that, but I'm going to go with this one. And then we'll just need a brush, and this is just my little tray. I think it was like the cover of a Levi's wallet or something that my husband got. Anyway, I saved the little tray because it's a great little tray for putting paint or glue in, and then I can just wash it out, rinse it out. So we'll need that. And then you're gonna need, we're gonna need some sort of elastic, and you'll probably want two. I'm gonna use two different sizes. I'm gonna use this larger size, and I think this is an inch. Yeah, this is inch wide elastic, and this I have left over from like a billion years ago from when I used to have to run elastic through my girls' jeans to like tighten the top, part up. So this, I just got some giant roll of it for super cheap at like an outlet center. So I've got this, but any sort of like wider elastic will do. I'm just using this 1-inch elastic. So I've got a roll of that. And then you're also going to want some like elastic string or something like this, and that's what's going to go and be our closure, go around our hitch post fastener, and it allows for some movement. You could, if you don't have this, or if you don't know how to get it or can't find it easily, this just came from I think Joann, but you can get it at Hobby Lobby and Michael's. You can probably get it on Amazon. This is 2mm elastic bead cord. That's what this is. 2mm elastic bead cord. And there's 8 yards of it here. So I've used this as closures on several things already and still have, quite a bit of it. I mean, you can see I've got quite a bit of it left on here. So this stuff is great for that kind of thing. You could use, like I said, if we get to that, when we get to that point, you could use twine or string or a variety of different things, and I'll show you that when we get there. Then I have got my this is a super wide, this is like 3-inch, I think, yeah, 3-inch book binding tape or book repair tape, and it's like a cloth, really strong adhesive cloth tape, and I'm going to use this to kind of on the seams where we seam our cover together. You don't have to have this. You could certainly use duct tape or masking tape. You're going to want some sort of tape probably, but you could use a variety of things. I'm just using this one because when I'm making a cover, I want my covers to stand the test of time. I just want to make sure that I'm using the best products that I can inside of things to make sure that they stand up. So that's why I spend a little extra money. it goes a long way. But I have a couple different widths. I just pulled out the big guns, the 3-inch one today. So I've got that. Then we're going to need some sort of cloth to cover our book with. It would be, you would want something that, so this is old curtains. You want something that will glue down well, probably not anything thicker than this. This is a fairly thin woven fabric and pretty flexible. If you did like upholstery cloth or something heavier, it might bulk this up too much, because we're going to do a layer of cardboard, then we're going to have a layer of fabric both on the top and the bottom, and then we're going to do some scrapbook paper over the tops of those. So at some point you're going to be sewing through a layer of cardboard, 2 layers of fabric, and then 2 layers of oh my gosh, scrapbook paper, or like, you know, this I'm using Tim Holtz paper, which is a little thicker anyway. So that's 5 layers. So at some point we're going to be sewing through all those. So if you use some sort of fabric that's too thick, it's going to make it more difficult, and it might make it too stiff. So I'd say any sort of cotton or calico or anything like that. Like I said, these are just some old curtains. These are the exact curtains that I used on the last one. So I'm going to whack another hunk off of that and use it here. And then the base, so what we're going to get started on right away today, is actually made out of the covers of 12 by 12 scrap paper, of scrapbook papers, right? So this is obviously like the back cover of a Tim Holtz paper pad, and they have just a little bit of weight to them. They're really, really thin cardboard, right? I'm not using the backs of the pad because those tend to be a little thicker, except this one. This is the back of a pad and it was thinner. And then I pulled out, so I always save them. So I've got several of these. This one's a little too thin. So what you just want to do is try to find 2 pieces of like the covers of 12 by 12 that have about the same weight to them. So these 2 feel like they have about the same weight. They have the same flexibility. They feel like they're about the same weight. So I'm going to use these 2. I'm going to set these aside. Throw them over there. So I'm going to use these. If you don't have 12 by 12, like if you don't have these, I've literally just gone and ripped the cover off of a pad before that I needed when I wanted one to use. Now I've learned to save them. But if you don't have this, you could use just a heavy cardstock, a watercolor paper, something that weight. It'd be great if it had some flexibility. So if you can bend it a little bit like this without it just breaking. So some watercolor papers and stuff, if you try to bend them, the fibers are going to start breaking just by the nature of the, you know, the paper itself. So you want something that's going to have some bend and flexibility, because we are going to make a flap that comes over the top like this. And we want the whole thing to, on the joints, we want it to remain, you know, pliable a little. The rest is going to get definitely tightened up and sturdied up by a couple layers of Tim Holtz paper. So I've got a paper pad here. I think this is memorandum underneath here, and then I have a couple of random pieces, maybe from, I think it's called Wallflower. These, I'm not sure, I don't remember. I grabbed out my Tim Holtz stuff. Oh look, there we go, there's the back of that one. Anyway, this one I think is called memorandum. That doesn't say on there, unless I'm totally missing it and you're staring right at it. So we're going to need something like that. You can use any scrapbook papers, or if you wanted to, you could print out a kit. If you're using a kit and you wanted to use those papers, I would just say that if you can print it onto cardstock, that would probably be better. Regular paper is going to have a little too much flexibility and give to it, and it just won't stand up to being the cover. We want the cover to be good and solid. So whatever paper you choose to use, you can definitely do that. So I'm going to take this and set this aside as well. And the first thing we're going to do, and you're going to need the guts of your book, right? So here I have 2 signatures. So I have this signature is my completed signature that's going to go in the actual single signature regular size journal. And this one is made from Tracy Fox's, the ones that I've used. Look at this. I remembered to save my little deals here. So I've used the Tracy Fox Creative Compendium MK2 kit. That's what I've used as like the pages in here, and then her random backgrounds, random papers. And then I also have used her Mega Mix and Match sets 1 and 2. And that's what my last few videos have been, me working through making all this ephemera. Here's my 5 tag book that we just finished. That would have been my last videos. But then I've got a bunch of other ephemera pieces here, which some of them might go into this, and then some of them might go into my next project, which, you know, I'll show you as well. Not today, but so I've got my single signature, and then I've got my traveler's notebook size signature. So I'm not going to go through making these because clearly I have them made, right? But you can take this idea and size it down and make something smaller, or you could size it up. I mean, these are 12 by 12, so you could make this a big, tall, huge thing too if you really wanted to. I today am going to be going with my single signature is just going to be the standard 8.5 by 11 folded in half, right? So we're at like just under 6 inches with all the little stuff and junk that hangs out. And my height on this is just under 9 inches. So we're going to be going 6 by 9 essentially for this. Pardon me. And my traveler's notebook-ish, like this isn't a traditionally sized one because it is 4.5 by 8. So I think it's like 4 1/4 by 8.5 or something. Anyway, whatever. This one, for all intents and purposes, 4.5 by 8. So that's the size. You just want whatever your smaller one is going to fit on the front of, you know, on the front cover of this one. You'll see when we get there, and they're going to actually go this way. Pardon me. I've got a little tickle, which often happens. So you're going to want 2 signatures. We won't be dealing with these today. Really, this video and possibly the next video will be mostly just building the cover out. And then we need to build a cover for the smaller one as well. This one's cover, the bigger signatures cover, will be bound into this whole cover that we're about to make. So I've got my little basket of that stuff, and I'm going to set that back over here. And our first deal is we're going to deal with this stuff. So let me rearrange all my stuff that I've just kind of cast off to the side there. So what we want to do first is we're going to use these 2 pieces together to make our cover. So what we want is we're going to make just a traditional cover. We're going to have to cut them down. Clearly they're too tall, but we're going to make like a regular, I'm going to make a like a 1-inch spine or a 1.5-inch spine. And then we'll have a front cover, and then we're going to attach these 2, overlap them and attach them, because then this front part here is where our traveler's notebook, our elastic will go here, and our traveler's notebook will slide into that. And then this piece will end up wrapping around and coming over top, and we'll fasten it here. And so that will cover both the traveler's notebook and the single signature journal that'll be down, you know, in there. So the first thing that we need to do though is cut them down to the right height. So like I said, whatever your signature size is that you end up doing, we're going to want to measure. And like I said, mine is just under 9 inches. So I think I'm going to go with a 9-inch cover. So let me grab my small slicer. And we're going to need to cut these down to 9 inches. Mine are both, you know, quite literally 12 by 12 size right now. So that's fine. And it doesn't matter which side I cut off. But if you, like, I'm going to cut off the top side just because that's where that, you know, the glue is. And even though I peeled most of the glue off, I can still feel some of that. So I'm going to cut this top edge off on this one when I cut it down to 9 inches. You know, save this because we can use it for something else. Not on this project, but so I've got that one down to 9. And this one doesn't have, oh, it does kind of have an icky edge up there. So I'm going to cut that one down on that one too. All right. So I'm just going to set my paper trimmer aside because we will need it again in a few minutes. So now we've got these down to 9 inches. Let's make sure I cut them the same. Yep, we're good. And now they're the appropriate height. We are going to have to trim off part of the edge because we don't need the full length of this. But that totally depends on how much we overlap and stuff. So we'll get there. What I want to do next is create my spine. So that's going to be on my first piece. And I'm going to grab my scoreboard. If you don't have a scoreboard, I'll talk through the way that you can do this without the scoreboard too. I just find my scoreboard has been one of my best choices of things because I am not good at making nice even folds. So this is a piece of equipment I use all the time. So again, let's measure. We want to make sure that we're going to be able to come all the way over. And if you have things like I do hanging out on the edge of your signature, so like I've got a little binder clip here and I've got a little piece of ephemera that's kind of sticking out past the edge, it's best if you make this top cover come far enough over so that it's going to cover those things, because then when we wrap the second piece around, it's not going to bend them. You know what I mean? Because if we made it so that it was like this, then the back cover is going to want to come over and wrap against those things, and then it's going to bend any ephemera. So we want to make sure, see how you can't see them? Just go till they disappear. That's how far we want to go. So I'm going to measure how wide those parts are. So when I look on my board, it looks like if I go to 6 inches, I should be good. That should get me past all of that stuff. So let me show you without the scoreboard sitting there. If I line up my spine over on this edge and I look at this 6-inch mark right here, well, it looks like this might stick out just a little further. So maybe I'll go to 6 1/4. Good thing I moved my scoreboard. So I'm going to go to 6 1/4 because that line runs here and it looks like it's going to just protect the edge of that. I hope this is making sense. If you have questions and you really are interested in doing this the way I'm doing it, then go ahead and leave them in the description below or in the comments below, and I will certainly try to help answer as many of them as I can, or address them visually, you know, so I can show you what I'm doing in the next part of this. So what I need to do is I want this flap to be 6 1/4 inches, and then I want a 1-inch spine over here on the edge. So I'm going to go to 6 1/4, and I'm going to put in a crease right there. And this is, you know, cardstock, so I don't have to worry about punching through it because this is pretty heavy duty stuff. So 6 1/4, and then I want a 1-inch spine. So I'm going to go from 6 1/4 to 7 1/4, and I'm going to put another crease in there. So whatever you ended up thinking your front cover needed to be to cover all your edge of your ephemera and everything, you want to do that. And then if you're just doing a single signature, you want to make a 1-inch spine. Mine is a fairly chunky signature. 1-inch spine should definitely be good enough to include all the stuff, you know, to fit and give it enough room. Now, you could do this and make a 2 or 3 signature journal to go inside and then put a traveler's notebook on top. Just know, I mean, the more signatures, obviously, the more chunky it's going to get. So like the thicker it gets, the more chunky it's going to be. But if you wanted to put, oh, also, I apologize now. I've got my window cracked because it's going to be 50 degrees today. Right now, I think it's like 42. And I've got my window cracked because here in northern Minnesota, 42 degrees is like, hallelujah, we're out of the deep freezer, even though we're supposed to get 6 to 10 inches of snow again tomorrow. But, so we're celebrating the 50-degree high today. But the National Guard jets, they practice over our house. And so they come like flying by really low sometimes. So I can hear them up in the air today, and they'll usually circle around and you can see them way up high, and they're going so fast. But every once in a while, they will scare the crap out of you by coming down really low and super fast, and it gets really loud. You see them pass before you hear the sound, and as soon as you see it pass, then it just like rumbles the house. So in case that happens, that's why I can hear them. So you might, I don't know if you can hear them flying around through the air. It comes and goes as they, you know, they can cover a wide expansive area in a short amount of time. So we'll see them kind of pass. Sometimes they'll do concentric circles. It's a bummer when it's cloudy, but when it's clear, today it's mostly clear. So you can kind of see them, which is kind of fun too. They practice dog fighting. Anyway, that's an aside. So we're making a 1 signature, so a 1-inch. If you're making more, if you want to put 2 or 3 signatures in, you would just want to account for that by making your spine here a little bit wider. So you could make it 1.5 inches. You could make it, you know, over, can you see the folds better on this side? Not really. But you could make it, instead of 1 inch, you could make it 1.5 inches or 2 inches, really just to accommodate whatever you're putting into your, you know, whatever you're putting into your cover. I'm making my 1-inch one. So I'm going to bring those over, and I'm just going to crease it where we put those fold lines in. So that's my cover. And then this is part of my back cover, and that's my spine. So far we should have this. We should have, there, that's a good angle, right? So we should have, this is my front cover, here's my spine, and then my back cover looks short, but that's because we haven't attached this piece to it yet, right? Which is then going to complete the back part of the cover and become the wraparound to the front. So now that we have this measurement established, we can go ahead and attach. I'm going to leave my board handy. Well, it's kind of always handy right here, because we're going to need it to put some scores into the part to just kind of train it to fold over easier. But before we do that, we're going to want to attach these two together. Now I'm going to overlap mine a little bit just to give it strength. So I'm going to overlap them, I don't know, maybe 1 inch or maybe a couple inches. And so in order to do that, I am first going to just apply some glue. And I'm not using my, you know, the one glue that I showed you before yet, because this isn't a structural thing really necessarily. This is just to attach the two pieces. And this is almost unnecessary if you're going to use the book tape. That definitely will hold it together, but I'm going to do this just because, like I said, I like making sure that everything's extra secure. So I'm going to just try and make sure that they're straight and that grabs. It's glossy, so it, you know, it takes a little extra second for it to grab. Make sure that that's grabbing back there, and make sure that I have done it flat. So I'm going to stand it up. Yep, it works. Okay, so that's grabbed. I can feel that it's not sliding around or moving. So we're good. And now is when I'm going to take my book tape and I'm going to put it over this seam here, and I'm going to put it over the seam in the back. And this for mine is what's really going to, you know, kind of super reinforce it. Again, you could at this point, oh, well, you could close your glue up, Nikki, so that it doesn't dry up. There we go, because we won't be coming back to that for a while. Okay, so you could use masking tape or duct tape, or, you know, whatever kind of tape you so choose at this point. Oh my gosh. Oh. Stop talking and trying to concentrate at the same time. Sorry, I am now pulling apart where I stuck it to. I just need to get this down. So I'm going to just go halfway, and I'm going to tape this down. If you're using book tape for the first time, let me tell you, because it's a fabric tape, it has stretch to it. So don't try to pull the ends like tight so that you don't get wrinkles too far, because you'll actually skew the tape. I learned that the hard way. So I'm going to use my bone folder and just rub it down really good. Get that burnished onto there really well. So as you can see, this provides a really nice firm transition between these two, and that way you're not going to end up, if you just used glue, right, let's go to the opposite side. If you just used glue, you might get the corners and the edges like popping up or peeling up at some point. And even though we're going to cover it with fabric, you might see that or feel that through. So that's kind of why I like doing this extra step. It might seem extra, and definitely you can skip it if you don't want to do it. But sometimes I just do all the things. So I'm showing you how to do all the things so that you can choose which of the things you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead. See, what I'm saying is if you pull too hard this way to try and make it taut, you can actually stretch the tape in a weird way. So you just want to kind of lay it down. And then I'm going to burnish over that, and then we'll trim the edges. But now we've got a really nice seal going there. Okay. And then we will trim the edges off here. And I apologize if I get weirdly out of frame and stuff. I've got a new camera, and I have kind of I had to do some new rigging and stuff on my filming arm to get it like set up the way I wanted to, but I'm still getting used to it. And I'm a lot wider shot than I normally would be, because I'm trying to make it so you can see this whole thing in frame. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over here. So here's our cover. Now we've got this nice seam in the back, right? So now we've got we can do a full 6-inch cover to here. And actually, look at that. It lines up perfectly, right? That black edge lines up perfectly where I would want my first fold to go. So that's pretty nice. But we've got our front cover, our 1-inch spine. Now we've got our back cover, and we're going to put some creases in here, and that's just going to help us fold this over. But as you can see, we do not need this full excess here. That's going to be too much. We want it to stop about here, you know, because we still want to be able to, our elastic is going to be here, and that's going to be need to be able to come up over to this. So let's put some creases. We don't want to make hard creases at this point. I'm just going to put some score marks in. And if you put several score marks in really close together, then that'll make it so it's flexible and it's kind of trained to move. And that way, when we cover it with fabric, this part will that bend will only be covered with fabric on the back and front. Everything else will have a layer of cardstock over it, the spine and everything, but this part will only be fabric, so it'll be flexible, which will provide us with that ability to fold it back and forth. So I'm going to line up this with my top here. I don't need to line up on this side really, because that doesn't matter so much as long as I'm firm tight up to the top. So I'm going to make my score straight. And then right here, so we need to know where our cover comes to. And our cover comes to, incidentally, my spine is lined up over here when I fold it up like this, I guess. So, you know, that makes it nice and secure in this corner, up into the corner of the scoreboard. But my cover comes to 6 1/4. So I've got it marked at 6 1/4 here. But if yours was longer, if yours, you know, if you came over to 6 1/2, then just fold it up like this and see where your cover comes to, and then we're going to go about a 1/2 inch up from there and start making the creases. So we want to give just a little bit of space in there before we start making the creases. So 6 1/4. So I'm going to go a 1/2 inch up, which would be 6 3/4, and I'm going to put my first score there. I don't want to go, you know, I do want to make sure that I'm not pushing too hard through. Basically, these are just going to provide us with some give. Also, I have learned if you have this scoreboard, this is an EK Tools one, this is pointy. So if you try using it too up and down like this, you will poke through. I have to remind myself to go more flat like this, right? More horizontal to the board, because then you're using this edge and you're not catching that tip. That's just, yeah, that's a pro tip. And it's only a pro tip, not that I'm some major pro. It's only a pro tip because I have poked through so countless papers. So I'm just passing along what I've learned by doing it the wrong way 100 times. So I've got that scored, and then I'm going to move up just to the very next one, and I'm going to go down that. And I'm going to do probably 8 of these, and we'll see where we're at. So there's 1, 2. And then I'm just going to keep going. So I've got my 1, my 2. Now I'm at 7. So I'm going to go there. 3. 8. So I've got 8 scores in here, which you probably cannot see at all, but you'll just have to trust me and believe me, I do have 8 scores in there. But as I'm looking at that, I'm thinking that's definitely not going to be enough. So I'm going to go, I'm on 8 here. I'm going to probably go 4 more. Yeah, let's go up to 12 scores, and then that'll probably be good. So that's 8, and then I did 4 more. That brings us to 12. You can hear them. Flat over here, scored there. So I've got, maybe you can see them better on here. Yeah, you can kind of see them there, right? So I've got my score marks. Now see how my paper will just naturally bend there. I don't want to make a hard crease on any one of these score marks. We've only done that because it loosens up the fiber in the paper, and it trains it so that it will fold over nicely. So we get this nice rounded corner, and it won't want to crease hard anywhere, which is what we want it to do. We want it to bend and flex, but not crease hard like this. Here we want a hard fold, here we do not. And then this is where we want to try and figure out now how much of this to cut off. So I'm kind of holding my, fold, how it's going to go. I'm trying to determine if I've got my, and here we could even do this at this point. Let's just dry fit this in here like this, and that'll give us a picture of how wide that needs to be. And then when we bring that over top, we're going to have this guy, in the front here. So then this is going to fold over. Let's see if I can hold this all together here. So that's going to slide into an elastic on here. So we're going to want to, it's a good thing that we put these in here because it will give us an idea of the actual width of this. So if we had cut off too much, then it would have made it too far over. So I think I'm going to cut off about here because I want to be able to see just the edge of this underneath, because the elastic's going to come here that holds it in, and that's what's going to come up to a hitch post fastener on this. So let's do that again, and I'm going to just take a pen and put a little mark. So I'm going to hold that, I'm going to fold that over, I'm going to try and get an idea here of what we're doing, and I'm going to say I want to go about here-ish. So that's where I'm going to cut off. I'll put these back over here. And I'm going to get rid of that, and I will trade it out for my cutter. And flip that over. And then I'm just going to line up my little pen mark that I made down here. And we'll just trim that off. There we go. Let me put that away. Put that away. Put that over there. And there we go. We have the basic, like the base of our cover. So I'm hoping this is making a little more sense to you what we're doing here and what we're going for. So we've got our traveler's notebook elastic will go here, our single signature in there, and this will fold over, and a hitch post fastener or a button or something will become our closure here as well. And then you'll get to see them both like this, and it will provide us with this really nice cozy thing. So okay, we have got our basic cover. Our next thing that we want to do is cover it with fabric. Now, a quick word. If your fabric is thin, or if you're going to go with like just a cotton muslin that's white, or something very light, or something that is basically anything that's not opaque, you might want to, and like you have this going on, and if you've used duct tape or book tape or anything that's really dark, you might want to just paint this white quick. Or black. Paint it all one solid color, essentially. You know, on the back side, it's white, but then we've got this black mark right here. And on the front side, we've got all kinds of color going on. However, my curtains, just by the nature of them being curtains, are thick enough. Here, I'm trying to find an edge here that I can work with. Sorry, it's a giant piece. So I'm going to double check, but I think, yeah, they are opaque enough that I cannot see through when I do this. So I'm not worried. And I know I didn't paint my last one either, but if you were going to use something thinner, like I said, like a cotton muslin or something. So I think I've got a piece over here. If you were going to use something like this, when I lay this out, you can even see, right? You can see through there. So this would be a really cool base, like, you know, definitely some coffee dyed muslin or something like that would be a cool base fabric, but you would want to paint what's underneath. Otherwise, you are going to see that. Most of it will be covered by the Tim Holtz paper or the scrapbook paper that we put on, but on the bend here and stuff, it won't be. So you would still see through. You could see through and see what was underneath it. So just keep that in mind as you're picking your fabric here. And so what I'm going to do is we need a piece for the front and a piece for the back because we're going to cover both sides. So I am going to just quickly, because I'm managing this ginormous piece here, I'm just going to and it's not one that I can rip because it's like a woven fabric. So I'm just going to whack myself a couple of rough size pieces and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back and I have just kind of very roughly, because this fabric gets, it's a weave, so it's very shifty, but I've just cut myself two very rough sizes of this, just big enough that it's, you know, overlapping the edges by at least an inch, because eventually one of the things I forgot to mention is a pinking shears. So if you are a sewer, or if you, even if you're not, but you know what a pinking shears is, it's this zigzaggy scissor, and they are meant so that if you cut the edges, it decreases the fraying. And this definitely, the fabric I've chosen, loves to fray. We're going to sew around the edges, but I'm leaving the edges rough. You can choose to finish this however you so choose, but I like the rough edge and just like the pinked edge, I guess. So what we need to do now is attach the fabric. We need to glue the fabric down onto our cover. So this is where I'm going to use my archival PVA glue. So I'm gonna give myself some in my little dish here. Oops. This is almost a brand new bottle. All right. Oh, I forgot to put that. It's time. It's going in the garbage. I also ran and put on my apron quick because as I started cutting this material, I was getting little fray chunks everywhere. So okay, what I'm going to do is take my glue and I'm just going to apply it. Now this glue, definitely once you start spreading it on, does not have a very long working time. So I'm not going to attempt to cover the entire base with glue right away, because it will dry up well before I get through the whole thing. So also, if you're using this type of glue or any sort of, PVA type of glue, you're definitely, and you're gluing fabric on with it, you're not going to want to put it on too thick because it will seep through your fabric, unless you're using something thick like upholstery fabric, but even then. So I'm going to put on a solid layer, but not too thick of a layer, if you know what I'm saying. So then I'm just going to get that first part done, and I'm going to flip it over and get that pushed down. And then I'm going to flip the whole thing over because we're going to work from this side. Sometimes I will use my tool, my bone folder, but I don't push it down hard because that's going to, you're just asking the glue to bleed through. So I will use it more like this just to make sure that I'm getting even pressure. And by pressure, I mean a very light press. Okay. So now that I'm pretty sure that that's on there good and I feel good and I don't feel any leaking through, which is awesome. I can feel that it's kind of damp from the glue, but it's not leaking through. So that means I'm getting about the right amount of glue on there. Then I'm going to pull this back to just where there's a little bit of give. That means it's my working edge. And I'm just going to cover the next chunk. And we're just going to keep doing this. We'll paint some glue on. And then we will push the fabric down into it, and we'll just keep doing this. I go a little bit under the edge like this, but if you go too much under the edge, then you're going to double apply glue, and that will, again, encourage it to bleed through. So I just kind of go up to the edge. I pick my edge like this up because then I'm not getting too much, well, as I just say, smash my brush into it, but that way I don't get too much glue gathering at the edge either. The book tape takes the glue because it's made out of cloth. That's one of the nice things about this, is it takes the glue and accepts the glue and accepts the fabric really well. So that's part of the reason why I like using the book tape. There are other types of cloth tape too that you can use, I think. I did recently discover, and we're in the state of hockey here in Minnesota, ice hockey for show. Though I've never been super into ice hockey or anything, but there is like hockey tape that guys use on their sticks and stuff. I think there's the same thing probably for like tennis rackets and whatever, but it's kind of a cloth tape as well. And I know here I've heard people saying that they use hockey tape, but I've seen people saying, you know, that like cloth sports tape for various things that you would usually wrap around the handle of something to give it better grip. So tennis, I know they use it. I don't know what other sports do, but that might be an option as well. It's okay. I am just smoothing. I can just slightly see my black book tape under there, but I'm not super worried about that part because that part is going to be, that's going to have paper over it. So where my seam is. All right. Then I'm pulling back to where, whoops, I'm throwing my paintbrush around and getting paint on things, or getting glue on things. All right, so I think you guys have the picture. I will fast forward through me doing the rest of this side, and then I will come back. Okay guys, I noticed that this corner wants to come up just a little bit, so I'm gonna put some more glue down. When I flipped over, I noticed that this corner wanted to come up, so I'm gonna put some more glue down and I'm gonna really push that in. We want our edges to be as well sealed as possible. Now we're gonna sew around the edges, and I'm gonna sew right up close to my edges and everything. So I'm not too worried, but just on the off chance, you know, if that I pink it up a little close, I want to make sure that, you know, my edges are sealed well. But I am, like I said, I'm going to sew right up close to them. So at this point, my whole cover, which barely all does not fit in the frame, but my whole cover, I can feel that it's damp through the fabric, but it's not bleeding through. When I rub my hands over, I don't get any glue on them. So that's good. That means that I've put about the right amount of glue. And I'm just pushing these edges down in, you know, the fabric, pushing them a little edge. A little glue seepage through the edge is not such a bad thing because that kind of helps seal it too, you know. All right, then I'm gonna flip it over, and what I'm gonna do is, because I've got all kinds of wonky stuff, here I want this much left, but I don't need this much on the edge. So just for the sake of, you know, not having just superfluous fabric everywhere. And of course I'm not using my fabric shears, so this is not gonna cut nearly as well. But I'm just gonna trim the edges down a little bit. We will go around and like with the pinking shears later and trim the edges off, but I'm just going to take it down to a little bit more manageable size right now. Also, I just must say that my daughter Liz, my 18-year-old, sadly she's homesick today. She's got a sore throat, but it's not the dreaded disease we've tested. But she leaves on her class trip tomorrow, so we're just trying to get her healed up and feeling better. So she's home, and but her cafe that she works at, which is right down the street, we're on Main Street, and so this wants to curl up a little, and that's fine. Once we put all the glue on this side and glue our next piece down, that's going to take the curlingness way down. So because there will be wet on both sides, which means it's good. Anyway, the cafe is open, and she is known for her like cinnamon rolls and stuff. And boy, can I smell them right now. And it is like cruel and unusual punishment. I've got my window cracked for the first time in months, and I can smell the cinnamon rolls, and boy, does that smell good. I swear restaurants pump that stuff through their vents, their hood vents, and aim it at other houses just so that they can get you to stop in. Because that smell of baking bread, baking cinnamon rolls smells so good. All right. So I've got my fabric covered cover base. And then I've got my other fabric, you know, outside down, wrong side up. There we go. And this has got pattern to it, but I'm not super concerned with trying to line it up or anything. If you are, go ahead and get it lined up. That's your deal. I'm just not that worried about lining it up on this particular project because most of this is going to get covered with some paper again anyway. But so part of trimming it down means that I can see where my edges on this piece are, so I can make sure I'm getting, you know, it about right. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I am just going to start painting at one edge, and I'm going to get my fabric or my base covered with my second piece of fabric. So I'm going to work on that. I will just fast forward that because, you know, for the sake of time, there's no reason that you need to watch me do that. And then we'll probably be at about the end of this first one. And when I rejoin you, we'll talk about next steps. Okay guys, so we're back. I just took my board out because I couldn't, this thing is longer. My project is longer than my glass mat, so I moved that out. So I have got now my cloth glued down on both sides. None of it's really sticking through. Then I trimmed the edges again as well. And I've got little pieces of, this fabric is definitely one that needs some sort of lint roller after you're done. But so I've got my both sides covered. It does feel damp on both sides for sure because we just loaded both sides of this up with glue. And so we can let that dry for a little while. This particular glue that I'm using dries pretty quickly. So I am I'm not inclined to put it, to dry overnight or anything like that. The last time I made one of these, I just kept working with it. My general rule is once it gets dry enough that it's not, damp to the touch, that's when I feel safe sending it through my sewing machine because it's not going to gunk up my needle with really wet adhesive. So anyway, the next step, the last step in getting the fabric part of this done is to go and sew around the edge of the whole fabric. And so if I peel this back just slightly, I can tell that I've pushed it into the edge of my paper really well because I've got a pretty good seal along the edges here. But I can also, if I pull it back, I don't want to pull too hard because it's still wet, right? But I can kind of see where the edge of my cardboard is there. I want to sew right up close to the edge, but it's hard to do that when I've got this excess fabric here. So this is when I'm going to take my pinking shears and I'm going to go ahead and trim right up along the edges. Now this part you just have to pay attention and go slowly because you don't want to cut too short. If you cut too much, you can always go back and trim over that, right? But you don't want to cut into your cardboard at all. So I am going to just start, I'm kind of feeling it on the front and back with my fingers here. And then I'm going to just keep trying to do that as I go. Okay guys, so I've trimmed around the edges of everything. Now I have a much better idea of where I need to sew. So I am going to go take this to my sewing machine. And, well, first I'm going to clean up my paintbrush and my glue tray so that that doesn't dry solid. And then I'm going to take this to my sewing machine. And I am literally going to just go around the edge. I'm going to do a mixed up mismatch of regular sewing and zigzag sewing. And I'm just going to go around the edge 2 or 3 times because I really want to make sure that this edge gets sealed really well, especially since we're leaving it raw. So I want to go around a whole bunch of times. So I am going to go clean up my paintbrush and glue tray, and then I'm going to sew around this, and then I will be back to finish up this video and this portion of our cover. All right, I'll be right back. Okay guys, I thought that I had recorded that last chunk and realized I totally forgot to push record, but that's okay. I can just re-talk you through what I just talked you through, but you weren't here. What were you doing? Why weren't you here? Anyway, all I did was took this over to the sewing machine. I went around. I've zigzagged. So I zigzagged all the way around the whole cover. And then I went back with some just regular stitches. I did a wide long stitch and then I did a regular stitch. And I like to back and forth like reverse it a little sometimes and stuff. I like kind of the grungy sewing look. And I like it to be kind of grungy and sloppy. If that's not you, put a nice, zigzag right along the edge. I do want to say that as I was zigzagging, most of the time I was trying to catch right over the edge of the paper, of the cardboard. So I would zigzag right over the edge like that. That just secures the edge even more. Now, this edge is a little sloppy. So what I'm going to do, and I'll do this off camera, is I'm going to go like this and just kind of, because I'm going to do it over the garbage can, but I'm going to go like this and pull away any of this extra like this, and then I'm going to trim that off. But I'm going to do it over the garbage can so I don't just make a heckin' mess everywhere, right? Then the other thing I said is you want to find your spine and then put those folds in so that the fabric will dry onto it'll dry with these folds and creases in there. So you want to find your fold for your spine and then just burnish that down, and that way your fabric will train that way as it's drying, right? So if you forget to do that, you can always come back and just put new creases in. But since we took the time to put the creases in, it's best if you just do it now. And then find the part where where we put our score marks in. And if you don't have a scoreboard, or you don't do this, you don't have a way to put the scores in, certainly right now is an okay time, and I do it this way anyway, but it's also a good time for you if you didn't have a scoreboard. What you can do is kind of determine where you would want that section of scores to be. And I'm going to, while this is slightly damp, going to roll it over the edge of my desk. So I'm just going to take it and roll it like this over the edge of my desk. And so that's going to make my scores bended into shape, but it's not going to put a firm crease. Like here, I've got firm creases for my spine. Here, I just want to kind of train the edge like this. So then it will dry with this kind of trained in the position that I want it, right? So that it doesn't dry stiff and hard flat. Here it's now got that flexibility there in my spine. So we've got, right? We had this in without the fabric a little while ago, and now we've got it with the fabric. So that's our cover part 1. We will come back in the next one and put the paper on, and then we will make the cover for our traveler's notebook that will eventually be housed here, and we will put the elastics on as well. And then we'll talk about how we bind this thing together and everything. So we'll do that in the next video or 2, depending on how long it takes. So like I said, the only thing I'm going to do off camera is just go like this and clean my edges up. If you're using a different kind of fabric, you might not even need to do that at this point. But just, you know, leave it to dry until we meet again. So I hope that you guys understood this and you understand what I'm doing. Like I said, if you have questions about how I got to this point or any one of the steps that I did, certainly leave them in the comment section below, and I will do my best to either respond to you there or show you in the next video if there are questions that would be better for me to just demonstrate something to you. I will certainly do that to the best of my ability, and I hope that you guys are enjoying this so far. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you are able to be crafty today. I hope that you're able to be with the ones that you love. And I hope that you are well and healthy and safe. And until I see you guys next time, have a great morning or afternoon or evening or middle of the night, whatever time of the day it is, on whatever side of this fantastic globe of ours that you live on. And until then, until next time, take care, stay safe, and God bless you. Bye, guys.